In a viral clip, after she made a foul play, Griner, rather controversial. It might be, though we don't know, trash, and don't know what she's mouthing, but she seems to, have a mouth on fucking white girl. Others have suggested it might be trash and fuck.
Have you ever seen a moment so jaw-dropping it flips the entire game upside down? A moment where one line sparks a storm so wild the internet practically breaks in real time? That's exactly what went down when Brittney Griner, towering basketball icon, walking headline, and magnet for nonstop controversy, opened her mouth and dropped a bomb that nobody saw coming. In the middle of a heated showdown with rookie phenom Caitlin Clark, the Golden Girl who's been shattering attendance records and dragging the WNBA into the mainstream, Griner didn't just play ball. She set the entire culture ablaze. Eyes locked, jaw tight, the tension was so thick you could cut it with a knife. Then came the line that set the digital world on fire. "I'm a grown man." Within seconds, clips went viral. Lip readers were zooming in like detectives. Fans were arguing in every corner of the internet, and algorithms were spinning this clip into pure chaos. X, Instagram, TikTok, every platform exploded with debates, theories, and think pieces. Was it a slip, a statement, or something deeper that Griner wanted the world to hear? Everywhere you looked, from gender identity debates to questions of fair play, this one moment exploded into endless controversy. And let's be real, this wasn't just trash talk on the court or some casual locker room joke. No, this was a seismic shockwave that rattled the entire culture of sports and spilled way past the hardwood. Things got even messier when fans dug up an uncensored topless photo that Instagram's own algorithm treated as if it were a man's chest. The AI didn't blur it, didn't block it, and that tiny detail sent fans spiraling with questions. Why would the platform's tech misread something so sensitive? That one glitch lit the fuse for a wildfire of speculation, and suddenly timelines were drowning in conspiracy theories.
Right now you have 10 points, 5 rebounds. We see the Atlanta Dream as being very... Right now...
People online started whispering about everything: testosterone rumors, intersex debates, and even wild claims about hidden identity changes. What began as a viral courtside clip had now cracked wide open into a cultural lightning storm, and the pressure kept building. Fans, analysts, and even rival players began demanding answers. Was the WNBA quietly letting someone with unfair advantages dominate the women's game? Or is this just another jaw-dropping chapter in Brittney Griner's wild career, built on triumph, scandal, and fearless boldness? It all kicked off from what should have been just a routine foul. Nothing more, nothing less. But Brittney Griner, standing at a towering 6 feet, 9 inches, snapped back hard. Not just physically, but emotionally, against a call that clearly cut deep. Her glare sliced through the noise of the arena like a knife, and then came the line that blew the internet to pieces. "I'm a grown man." Was it pure adrenaline, court swagger, a heat-of-the-moment slip? Or was it something deeper, maybe even a confession no one expected? Within minutes, the clip went nuclear. Fans were pausing and rewinding every frame like detectives on a crime scene, studying her tone, her eyes, her body language. Convinced they had stumbled on something bigger, the internet turned one heated moment into an international spectacle. Twitter feeds drowned in memes, Instagram reels spread like wildfire, podcasts churned out emergency episodes, and late-night comedians had their writers' rooms working overtime just to crack jokes about those 3 words. Overnight, grown man wasn't just a phrase, it was a movement, splitting public opinion right down the middle. Some praised her boldness, saying it was just unapologetic confidence, while others screamed fraud and demanded answers. But here's the part that made things even messier. This one viral moment forced sports fans into an uncomfortable conversation nobody wanted to touch. The reality is, athletic bodies don't always fit into clean, simple categories. Some people are born intersex, with naturally higher testosterone levels. Others have rare muscle compositions that blur gender lines. And then there are trans athletes who undergo strict hormone therapy just to meet league requirements and align with their true identity. It all started with what should have been a routine foul, the kind of call that happens a dozen times in every game. But Brittney Griner, standing at an intimidating 6 feet, 9 inches, snapped back with a force that was more than physical. You could see it in her face, in that piercing stare that cut straight through the roar of the arena. Then, in one split second, she dropped the line that detonated across the internet. "I'm a grown man." Was this just raw emotion spilling out? Court swagger running wild? Or was it something deeper? Maybe even a slip that hinted at a truth no one expected. The reaction was instant. Within minutes, the video went everywhere, spreading faster than the highlights of the actual game. Fans dissected every micro-expression like forensic experts, convinced they'd just uncovered the biggest bombshell in WNBA history.
About holding.
The internet went into full-blown chaos mode. Twitter feeds turned into battlefields, memes exploded across TikTok, and whole podcasts were built overnight just to debate that one moment. Late-night comedians pounced on it too, squeezing punchlines out of those 3 explosive words. Suddenly, grown man wasn't just a phrase. It was a meme, a movement, and a cultural flashpoint. Some people celebrated her boldness, calling it fearless confidence. Others accused her of deception and demanded answers, claiming the line proved too much. And here's where it hit even harder. The controversy cracked open a much bigger conversation that sports has been dodging for years. The truth is, athletic bodies don't always fall neatly into male or female boxes. Some people are born intersex, with naturally higher testosterone levels. Others have unique muscle builds that blur the line. And trans athletes often undergo strict hormone therapy just to comply with league rules and live in alignment with their identity. What if Brittney Griner had actually been born biologically male and raised as female? Just that theory alone could detonate the credibility of the entire league. Then there's another possibility, that she might be intersex with natural traits like elevated testosterone, denser bone structure, or extra muscle mass that gave her a physical edge most athletes can't touch. And of course, the most explosive theory of them all, the whisper that Griner could have quietly undergone testosterone therapy without any public record, no league acknowledgement, and zero awareness from fans. No matter which angle people chase, each theory chips away at the foundation of how we view competition, fairness, and transparency in sports. And one thing's clear, the WNBA can't afford to sit back and stay silent much longer. America, the foundation of women's sports, rests on one powerful principle: fairness. Fans need to believe that every bucket, every championship, every highlight moment is earned on equal ground, not tilted by hidden advantages that no one disclosed. So, if the WNBA knowingly, or even unknowingly, let someone with traits linked to male physiology dominate without disclosure, then suddenly every stat, every award, and every inspiring underdog story feels tainted. This is bigger than just one player. It's about trust in the entire system. And when you throw Griner's past into the mix, the drama only gets hotter. Remember, this is the same athlete who was arrested and imprisoned in Russia, sparking international headlines, and then returned to the US in a dramatic prisoner swap. Ever since, she's been caught between being praised as a symbol of resilience and slammed as a lightning rod for endless controversy. And now, with this new storm brewing, the stakes for her, and for the league, have never been higher. Depending on who you ask, Brittney Griner is either a fearless trailblazer or a walking contradiction. And now the noise online is deafening, with people demanding nothing less than the truth. Some voices are calling for a full-on investigation. Hormone panels, genetic tests, transparency from top to bottom. Others are throwing up red flags, warning that digging too deep could cross dangerous lines, strip away someone's privacy, and open the door to a wave of discrimination that sports isn't ready to handle. This isn't just a headline, it's a cultural collision between the push for equality and the demand for respect. And in the middle of it all, Caitlin Clark's meteoric rise is adding jet fuel to the fire.
She's that confident in her abilities, but she's also a little delusional.
Her impact has completely shaken the WNBA. Ticket prices for Indiana Fever games skyrocketed when she hit the court, only to crash back down the moment she was sidelined with injury. Her star power alone filled arenas that used to echo with silence. And when you view that against Griner's comments about the noise levels at Clark's games, it starts to feel less like concern and more like resentment, as if the cheers pouring in for Clark are drowning out the fading echoes of Griner's once untouchable dominance. That's where the real tension is: past versus present, personal identity versus public policy, and a league caught in the middle of a culture war it can't afford to ignore. And just when you thought it couldn't get spicier, podcaster Patrick Bet-David jumped into the mix with his trademark sarcasm and razor-sharp criticism. He didn't hold back one bit, mocking the irony of Griner, who the U.S. literally traded an arms dealer to free from a Russian prison, now turning around and complaining about the fans being too loud. The internet ate it up, and the backlash only got louder. That contrast hit like a punch, and the digs at Brittney Griner didn't stop there. Patrick Bet-David even dragged up her infamous comment about being able to get work done while sitting courtside during games, using it as the ultimate symbol of just how irrelevant the WNBA once felt. Back then, the silence of empty arenas mirrored the league's desperate fight for visibility. But that era? It's dead and gone. Enter Caitlin Clark, crashing onto the scene like a wrecking ball. With her came record-shattering TV ratings, multi-million-dollar sponsorship deals, and headlines plastered across the globe. She turned what once looked like a fading product into must-watch television. But instead of celebrating the surge of energy, Griner seems to be resisting the very wave she helped create. And then came the most explosive layer: race. Griner hinted that the overwhelmingly white support flooding Clark's games had an undercurrent of racism. That one remark peeled back years of unspoken tensions inside the league. For decades, Black players have dominated on the court, carrying the WNBA on their shoulders, yet rarely received the kind of glowing adoration that Clark now enjoys with ease. Griner's words weren't just offhand comments. They were a flare fired into the night sky, signaling deeper frustrations about race, recognition, and fan loyalty shifting in real time. And while resentment in sports is nothing new, Michael Jordan endured it when Detroit built the infamous Jordan rules to stop him, Serena Williams lived through it for decades while smashing records. This feels different. Rivalries naturally thrive when greatness arrives, but Griner's reaction doesn't just read as rivalry. It reveals something more vulnerable: a clash between her pride as a legend and the uncomfortable spotlight now shining elsewhere. She's not the only one facing this kind of heat. Athletes in the NBA, NFL, and MLB deal with hostile environments every single night. Booing, jeering, wild chants. It's part of the job description. In fact, most pros use it as fuel to dominate. So when Brittney Griner complained that the fans were too loud, it didn't sound like concern. It sounded like entitlement. Let's be real. Pro athletes are paid to perform under pressure, and fans pay for the right to make noise. A roaring arena isn't an attack, it's a badge of honor. It's proof the world is finally paying attention. If Griner's truly as confident as she claims, then her game should speak louder than any crowd ever could. But here's the catch. Confidence can start looking like delusion when the complaints pile up instead of the wins, and that's where the league finds itself stuck in the middle of an ugly debate. WNBA officials now face an insanely delicate balancing act: protecting a player's right to privacy while still keeping the competition clean and fair. One option? Enforce mandatory hormone testing across the entire league. But that move would unleash backlash, lawsuits, and fresh accusations of body policing. On the flip side, they could launch a targeted investigation into Griner's eligibility, a decision that might quiet critics but would almost certainly spark outrage from fellow athletes, shattering trust in league leadership. And hovering over all of it is the money. This controversy is already casting a long shadow, and the big dogs, sponsors, and broadcast networks are paying very close attention. What some see as a PR disaster, others see as ratings gold. Will corporate partners double down, cashing in on the drama, or will they back out to protect their brand? Nobody knows. But one thing's clear: this storm has the power to reshape the WNBA's future in ways nobody expected. And what about the players? Behind the spotlight, tensions are boiling quietly but fiercely. Some voices inside the league are calling for complete transparency, saying that if Brittney Griner really did have some kind of undisclosed biological edge, then every teammate and every opponent has the right to know. They don't want to be seen as complicit, misled, or robbed of fair competition, but just as loudly, others are pushing back, warning that digging into an athlete's personal and medical history crosses a dangerous line that could violate privacy and open the door to exploitation. It's a high-stakes standoff with nothing less than the future of the league on the line. Meanwhile, public opinion has completely melted down, split right down the middle. On one side, passionate supporters defend Brittney Griner's right to define her identity however she chooses, framing the backlash as a witch hunt. On the other, fierce critics argue that even the perception of a biological advantage, real or not, undermines the very fairness that women's sports are built on. And the internet? It's turned into an outright battlefield. Polls are racking up millions of votes, hashtags are going to war across timelines, and emotional pleas from fans clash violently with sarcastic memes and troll armies in every thread. The noise is deafening, the debates are raw, and through all the chaos, one question keeps echoing louder. How long can the WNBA dodge giving a clear answer? And what about the players? Behind the bright lights, tensions are rising fast and sharp. Some athletes are demanding full transparency, saying if Brittney Griner really does have an undisclosed biological edge, then every teammate and opponent deserves to know. They don't want to feel complicit, misled, or cheated, but others are pushing back just as fiercely, warning that digging too deep into an athlete's personal or medical history crosses serious ethical lines and could trigger discrimination on a whole new level. This isn't just a locker room debate. It's a high-stakes standoff, with the very future of the league hanging in the balance. Meanwhile, public opinion has gone into absolute meltdown, split clean down the middle. On one side, supporters defend Brittney Griner's right to define her identity without interrogation, calling the backlash invasive and cruel. On the other, critics argue that even the hint of an undisclosed advantage, real or perceived, shakes the foundation of fairness that women's sports rely on. And online? It's an all-out war zone. Social media polls are pulling in millions of votes, hashtags are waging war across timelines, and emotional pleas are crashing headfirst into sarcastic memes and troll armies. The noise is deafening, and the frenzy just won't stop. Through all the chaos, one haunting question keeps echoing. How long can the WNBA stay silent before the entire league crumbles under the weight of the controversy? This wasn't just some wild online rumor spiraling out of control. This was a full-blown crisis. And at the center of it all was one of the most explosive topics in modern sports: gender verification. It hit the WNBA right at its most vulnerable point. For years, the league prided itself on being the most inclusive stage in professional sports. But now, those same values felt like a dangerous tightrope. How do you protect fairness on the court while standing strong for inclusion off of it? That single question hung heavy in the air, gnawing at every league official. Everyone knew the way the WNBA handled this moment would define its legacy moving forward. Meanwhile, sponsors weren't sleeping. They monitored every headline, every trending hashtag, like hawks circling prey. Some quietly pulled back ad dollars, desperate to avoid being dragged into the storm. Others, though, smelled opportunity. Scandal drives clicks, drives engagement, and when it taps into the red-hot subject of gender and fairness in sports, the numbers skyrocket. A few brands even drafted social media campaigns in advance, planning to loudly back Brittney Griner if her name was cleared. The fact that those posts never went live told you just how risky the climate had become. And inside the locker rooms? Emotions were boiling over. Some teammates stood by Griner without hesitation, saying her physique was nothing more than the product of years of elite-level training and discipline. But others, in hushed conversations, admitted they'd always noticed something off and just brushed it aside. A handful weren't willing to bite their tongues anymore. They demanded full transparency. If Griner's biological makeup crossed any league-defined thresholds, they believed they had a right to know before stepping on the court, with or against her. This wasn't just some rumor spiraling out of control. This was a real crisis. And at the center of it sat one of the most explosive issues in sports: gender verification. It slammed into the WNBA at its most vulnerable moment. For years, the league had proudly stood as a beacon of inclusion, but now those same values felt like a tightrope stretched thin. How do you defend fairness on the court while protecting identity and inclusion off of it? That question haunted every league executive, and everyone knew the answer would define the WNBA's legacy for years to come. Meanwhile, sponsors were wide awake, tracking every headline and hashtag like hawks circling over chaos. Some quietly pulled their ad dollars, not wanting their brand tied to the storm. Others smelled money, because scandal means clicks, headlines, and nonstop engagement, especially when it touches the red-hot subject of gender and fairness in sports. A few even had "Support Brittney Griner" campaigns drafted and ready to go if she came out cleared. But the fact those posts stayed in the drafts folder showed just how risky the situation was. Inside the locker rooms, emotions boiled over. Some teammates stood by Griner with full loyalty, insisting her frame was nothing but years of grueling elite-level training. But others, behind closed doors, admitted they'd always noticed something different and just chose not to question it. And then there were the bold ones, the ones who refused to stay quiet anymore. They demanded full transparency. If Griner's biological makeup crossed any league-defined thresholds, they believed they deserved to know before stepping on the court with or against her.